Yes, guys, in today's episode of the 3 More Points podcast, Harry is going to tell me why it was actually a good draw at Old Trafford. We're going to look at where Chelsea are right now. We're going to decipher why this season is still going to be one for the absolute ages. However, we begin first of all by taking a look at the comment of the week. This isn't going to be a segment every week unless you guys leave unreal comments, but this comes in from your boy, Silver Iodide. Don't know where he's from, don't know who he is. It could even be a woman, I'm not sure. Half-cut, slurred, unfocused. A disappointing performance. Talking about Chelsea, I believe, but could also be talking about me and the way that I represented myself in 6 Things We Learned when I was absolutely off my rocker, because it was a big day. But it was absolutely, I think, fitting that I was having a bit of like a half-cut, slurred, unfocused day, because it was absolutely resembling what we saw from Chelsea. But of course, we are joined today by none other than Big Harrison, a guy called Henry. His channel link is in the description. How are you doing, fam?
I'm very good, mate. Before I begin, I just want to refocus my camera. I'm sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, good well, intro. You do that, mate. Stick your fingers in the air.
There we go.
Lovely.
Right, it's as part of the recording, it zoomed right in on my face for a moment, so hopefully it'll go back out in 3.
Your sunburnt nose, is it hot in Australia,
1.
Is it?
Mate, right, there we go, I'm back now. So, yeah, I pointed that out to George. He wouldn't have noticed, but my nose is Rudolph-esque right now. It is on fire. I went for a very innocent 3-hour walk on Friday, just to stretch the legs post-COVID. I had COVID or I had some kind of flu, and I didn't put any sun cream on, and lo and behold, I am maimed from the event. I have prepared an intro for the podcast. I was thinking, you know what, we need something to kind of let the people know what's going on here. And I have prepared. I got ChatGPT to write me an intro for the podcast. Ever wondered what the ultimate Chelsea fan podcast duo sounds like? Welcome to 3 More Points, where George Benson and a guy called Henry deliver the elite analysis you need, with all the highs, lows, and laughs of being a Blues fan. Think of us as the Diddy and Usher of Stamford Bridge, with just as much flair and twice the bromance. We're like Drogba and Lampard if they swapped the pitch for podcast mics, here to break down every goal, gaff, and transfer drama. From the Cesc and Diego energy to our very own Batman and Robin vibe, we've got the friendship, the chemistry, and the passion to keep you coming back for more. So grab a coffee or a pint and settle in, because we're here for one thing: 3 more points!
I was not ready for that. I'm not going to lie to you. I think that might have to be something that we just have at the start of every video now. Not even. Can you write me those for like just a bog standard news video? Can you write me something for like a bog standard match preview against Noah's Ark in the Conference League? That's invigorated me for this podcast. It's given me like a positive turn of thought. But I don't know who's Diddy and who's Usher, but I don't really want to take on the role of either of them, to be fair.
Well, I also don't believe that we have more bromance than they do, but I think we've got a good relationship. I'll say that.
Yeah, we can roll with that, Harry. We can roll with that. Well, you're clearly in a good mood then. If you've been ChatGPTing, you've been linking us to current affairs, best podcast duo in the world. Like, what more could we ask for apart from 3 more points at the weekend against Arsenal? But Man United, it didn't happen. Let's start with that, shall we? What were your thoughts on the game? Because I think you were probably, from what we've discussed off camera, I think a lot more positive, maybe a bit more enlightened to why it wasn't so bad as me. And obviously I'd had a few more pints than you, which probably made it a bit more negative. But like, what was your overriding thoughts coming out of that?
For everyone who's wondering, if you're wondering in the future if George has been drinking, he's got this little towel where he goes. He's got this little pout that he does when he's had too many drinks. I've seen it too many times. So I was watching and I was like, is this guy absolutely... And I waited about 5 seconds. I was like, yeah, there's the pout. So yeah, I knew you were steaming, and it was probably a good thing that you were, just to sort of numb the pain a little bit, because it was a really frustrating game. People were saying it was there for the taking, and based on what we've been able to do so far this season, I really felt like it was. And based on where they're at, they've got an interim manager. I know you get the new manager bounce, and that's quite like an unquantifiable thing. You never really know how much of an impact it's going to have, especially when you've got a literal interim manager. We already know who the next guy is going to be. Van Nistelrooy is only going to be there for 5 minutes. So it was really hard to know what kind of a tune he'd get out of those players. But if you look at the squads man for man, there's not many of their players that I would want. Just taking them as they are on paper. And it's a bitter pill to swallow not getting the 3 points there with the form we've been in, with the players that we have. But I think overall I came away feeling I was really mixed, to be honest with you, because in the context of where we are as Chelsea and where they are as Man United, we should win that game. But in the context of the history of the two clubs, the last time we won at Old Trafford, the journey we've been on, the instability that we've had, I felt like rather than being an immature mess, which is what we've often been when we go to Old Trafford, we were actually very mature. I thought we approached the game in a really good way. And honestly, if not for Robert Sanchez, we probably would have won that game 1-0. And you come away saying, what a brilliant, disciplined, mature performance, which is exactly what I've been looking for from my Chelsea team. I want more maturity. I want more stability and solidity. So seeing all those things in that performance, I was really happy. But we've got to go to that next level and have enough X factor in attack that we win those games. But I think it's really important to say that this is a United team that will often get a result against the grain, against the form. You know, they've done it against Man City. They won the FA Cup final last season. And actually, I think that they do play better in these bigger games. As we know, we've when was the last time we won at Old Trafford? Was it under Benitez or something? So,
yeah,
and when
2012-13.
And when I looked at the game, what it really came down to was they actually defended really, really well, I thought. The 1v1 defending from them was excellent. Because what we've seen so far this season is our wingers isolating opposition fullbacks and centre-backs and just having too much. And I thought they defended Jackson very well as well. What it really came down to on our side was the missing piece of the jigsaw right now, which for me is Sanchez. That distribution from him, it was just painful to watch, frustrating to watch. The number one thing we need is good distribution from our keeper. And every piece of the puzzle looks to be there right now, but we are really missing that ball distribution from Sanchez, and also just him not being erratic and making mistakes. I thought he punched the ball very well, but other than that, I don't have much good to say about his performance.
If a boxing guy says he punched the ball very well, then we've got to take that compliment as like a genuine, outright positive. I said it in the pod last week, didn't I, when I looked at the player analysis, and they were like, no outstanding strengths and error prone is the weakness. Like, the problem is, Harry, like, I'm kind of tired now of saying it because I know it's coming. Like, every single match preview, when I talk about the goalkeeping choice, I say Robert Sanchez in goal for the Premier League games through like almost like a clenched jaw. I'm like, I don't really want this guy in there. Gritted teeth. That's the phrase I was looking for. But it's like, I just know that he's gonna do something like that. And I think there's always gonna be anomaly games where players they're outstanding. Like, I mean, look at Harry Wilson for Fulham last night. Comes on, scores 2 goals in injury time, 2 unbelievable goals. They beat Brentford. Like, every player, not saying Harry Wilson's a bad player, but every player has those games where it's just like, whoa, where did that come from? Like, he's really good. And with Sanchez, it's been 2 really good performances where, yes, he was on the day outstanding, but you're walking into every single game and I'm like, we know that the defence is frail. We know that there is a lot of imperfection still with this team. And there is a massive imbalance between how good we are going forward, which again is another topic to discuss in this game specifically. But then also at the back, like the defensive line, I look at all of those players that started the game. Gusto, Fofana, Colwill, Reece James. You can see here on this graphic, Fofana gets a 7.5, Colwill a 6.9, James a 7.1. Gusto came off at halftime. He was hoiks for Cucurella. Right decision. Thought Cucurella should have started. But like, these are all good players, right? These are all really good players. And I think sometimes a defensive line, they have these frailties because they don't have the confidence in the guy behind them. I think defenders can be erratic in nature at times when they're actually fearful that if the ball goes anywhere near the keeper and breaks that defensive line, then we're in serious trouble. Yeah. And I think that's part of the problem here. Sanchez just, like, he's just not even a top half Premier League goalkeeper. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's serious issues with this guy. Yeah,
and I think I was actually thinking about it during the game, and it was before we I think we conceded, but I was thinking about the beauty of that Maresca system is that when you press us high, we go long accurately. And we have the ability to control the ball, like long balls under pressure. There were some great balls over the top from Reece James in the game. I thought Neto there was that ball from Caicedo. Do you remember where he wriggled around a few players, banged it across the pitch? Yeah. Neto took it down, beat the man. And I think that, so if you press us too high, we can go long. If you sit deep, then we'll control the possession and we'll break you down. So that's exactly what I think we should be doing. You shouldn't always try and play out from the back. But the point is, we need a better keeper to facilitate those options. Otherwise, when you press us high, we bang the ball long, they win it back. And it's a massive issue. It's a massive, massive issue. And so it has to be addressed as soon as possible. And the depth is not there. And the competition's not there. As much as I think Jorgensen, it's harsh to say, we just don't know how good he is yet. But I also am fairly confident in saying right now he can't really challenge Sanchez, because I think he would be. I think this would be the moment you take Sanchez out the team if Jorgensen really can contest that position. So that's the worry for me. But speaking about Reece James, a positive is that he's now completed, is that a second or third game in a row? That is hugely pleasing to me. I'm so delighted that he's completed another 90 minutes. I said to you before he came back this time, and I was kind of a little bit trying to manifest, but I seem to be doing a lot of that. But I said to you, I really believe this is the time that he comes back and doesn't get injured again for a period of time.
Yeah.
And he is looking good. There was a couple of passes. There was one in particular I remember he misplaced across the pitch that wasn't good. And I think that it was really our own mistakes that let United into this game. That's the frustration for me. But I'm going about this in a very roundabout way. But I wanted to say that I thought in the first half, Caicedo and Lavia were absolutely brilliant. The power, the timing that they brought to the midfield, we were absolutely dominating them. And that was really when we should have gone for it and scored. And I think that's when the apprehension was too much. And I definitely felt a few times where our wing players got wide with the ball and they had the opportunity to cross it in. There wasn't enough players in the mixer, basically. And I felt that Jackson was getting marked out the game. But what did you think about that? And what's the solution?
I think it's actually a trend that we're seeing here with Jackson, which some weeks it's fine because he doesn't score. But I feel like Jackson is becoming less and less involved in the play. And I'm at crossroads at the minute. And I think it's good that we can bounce off one another with this conversation today. Because after the Newcastle win, I was like, this is great. Let's go to Newcastle again. Hopefully the B team can show that they're good enough. They're not. And I think as a result of that learning that we saw from the Carabao Cup loss last week, it does put a lot of pressure on this 11 now. And when I see what I would consider a really lackluster performance at Old Trafford against, to be honest, one of the most lackluster teams in the league, I don't see any real quality in that Man United side. There's players there that have been good in the past, like Bruno Fernandes was a decent player. Don't like him, never have. But Rashford also the same. There's just this Man United team, it looks exhausted. Even when you look at the names, they're like, well, how are you still a Manchester United player? What has gone wrong for you? Then you compare that to our recruitment, and I'm like, well, yeah, we've signed a few potentially questionable ones, but we've got really flipping good players. Yeah. I think Jackson, the way that we have seen us develop in the last couple of weeks, I think Jackson is becoming less important in a way, but also at the same time super important because the role that he's being asked to do now is just to convert chances and score goals. But we didn't really create any opportunities for him to do so in that match. I'm going to look at Jackson's stats now. Touched the ball 29 times, which is even less than what we saw against Newcastle. I think it was 34 touches. And we're looking here, and he's winning most of his ground duels, but there's not really too many times where you see Jackson in that position where he thrives, which is dropping a bit deeper, running at the back line. And as much as Man United really contained us in that game and actually just put us in their pockets, really, Madueke had an absolute stinker. But I just fear that this tentative approach, like, is this actually just an embodiment of the stylistic play that Maresca is expecting of us? Maybe some of the free-flowing, loads of goals at the start of the season was maybe us just releasing the shackles a little bit. And we saw at Leicester. And again, I don't like to keep going back to the time at Leicester, but it felt as though that Leicester team had these like chains on them at times where they couldn't go out and be expressive. And at the start of this season, we were doing that. We were blowing teams away. And we'll talk about the oppositions that we've faced as we go through this pod. But I just look at that performance at Newcastle in midweek and this one at Man United, and I'm like, why does it feel as though we've just got this like heavy parachute on our backs now? And I used that analogy again last week, but I think this game against United, the reason I was so mad and frustrated afterwards is because I genuinely think we've gone into our shell. And the league position suggests that we're doing really well, which we are. We're fourth. We're ahead of Arsenal. You asked me that at the start of this season, to be 10 games into the league season, have Arsenal come into the bridge on Sunday, and we're ahead of them in the table. I'd bite your hand off. We're in the top 4. It's brilliant. But I am concerned that maybe we are going into ourselves at a time when actually it should be double down, use the fact that we're shit at the back and great going forward, and just absolutely go for it. Why didn't we do that? Why didn't we pepper this average United team?
Yeah, it is frustrating, and that was why I felt so mixed coming away from it. Because, as I say, long term, you look at where we are on the table, you look at our development as a side. If I look at the big picture, I'm like, yeah, this is fine. But as a Chelsea fan who wants to win every single game, and with the state the two sides are in, I would have liked us to push it a bit more. However, what I will say is we did concede a goal in that game. Playing, if you want to say the handbrake on a little bit, we still conceded a goal. So imagine if we'd gone for it and not been able to score still, we could have conceded another goal. We could have lost the game 2-1. So there is that.
But Onana wasn't really challenged either, was he? Like,
he wasn't tested
enough. 2 saves the whole flipping game. Yeah. So I think that's the problem here, is against any side in the Premier League, and this is a great transition to look at the teams that we face and the teams that will play. If you look at the Premier League table this season, from where Nottingham Forest are in third, I'll put this up on the screen for you guys to have a visual representation. You got Forest in third on 19, 4 points behind City, 6 behind Liverpool. And then from Forest, who are third, all the way down to Leicester in 15th, there's only 9 points separating all of those teams. And from Forest down to flipping Newcastle in 11th, there's only 4 points between it. So I think at this point in time, you're in a very competitive Premier League where there's 2 outliers at the top right now. You've got Arsenal and Aston Villa that seemingly have capitulated. You've got Spurs that don't know if they're coming or going 1 week from the next. They can be incredible or they can be absolutely atrocious. I feel as though Chelsea, so far this season, to me, have looked like one of the most impressive teams week on week. And that is like, not to disrespect Forest, but like for me, it seems still like an outlier. They're doing incredibly well, but I don't know if they can sustain this over a long period of time. And I think looking at this table and looking at the decline of maybe Arsenal, who haven't won in their last 3, Aston Villa also 1 win in their last 5 games. I just think right now that Chelsea need to be just using the fact that everyone's pretty inconsistent. Results are coming and going for certain teams week after week. It's going to change game on game. I think Chelsea need to just keep going with this relentless nature of the way that we were thriving at the start of this season. And I'm really worried, particularly with this like obsession with the inverted fullback. I think Maresca's kind of getting confused himself right now. We're seeing game after game, Reece James is still a left back, and then at half-time he's now back a right back again.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about the
fullbacks. He seems
fullbacks.
to like and bought him off. Like I just wonder if this inverted fullback thing right now is actually a stylistic problem for Chelsea that is inhibiting us from being as good as we can be.
Yeah, well, I was actually thinking about this a minute ago. I want to bring this up. When you think about the dynamics between those 3 guys, Gusto, Cucurella, and James, the guy out of the 3 of them so far this season that has shown he can add to the attack is Cucurella. He is the one that has got further forward, that has been in the final third of the pitch and actually done a really good job of linking the play together, being like a second 10 almost. I'm not that mad on Gusto in that position. I get it from like a pressing point of view, but every other part of it, I don't think he's as good as Cucurella at. I think probably as a 1v1 defender, I'm sure as a 1v1 defender, he's better than Cucurella. Not to say Cucurella's bad, I just think Gusto really excels in that department. But if you're talking about attack, then yeah, Cucurella for me, he's the one that should be the first name right now, because we do play, we line up with that back 3, and we're not using the overlapping fullbacks like we used to do. You know, the days of James and Chilwell playing as those like ridiculously attacking fullbacks is gone. So the guy that, because to call an inverting fullback, you got to kind of explain it. So we've got one who defensively inverts, basically, who makes up a back 3 of centre backs, and then you've got another one who attackingly inverts, who does it further up the pitch, and then obviously that makes more numbers in the middle to create space for the guys out wide to attack. The problem is, if the guys in the middle can't control the ball under pressure and be in the right places at the right time for 1-2s and little touches, then it's not really going to work, is it? And it means that guys like Palmer can get marked out the game. They played 2 DMs in that game as well. It's worth taking note of. And actually, I thought Palmer was popping up in more different positions in this match as well. He wasn't so much just holding that final third position. He was dropping deep a lot. The issue we talked about with Enzo, actually, not being in the side before, we said him not being there meant that Palmer was having to come deeper, or him not being able to make those passes. So I think that the inverting fullback is hugely important to the way we play, unless we're going to switch to a 4-3-3. And I wonder if that might happen to get Enzo in the side. I never thought that would be the case. But I don't know. What do you think about that, George? Do you think that's a potential option solution? Do you think Maresca might look at that? The way that, it wasn't that free-flowing this game. We weren't really creating overloads. I felt that we made some 1v1s, but again, they defended quite well. But there wasn't many moments where there was a clear pass that we hit and then we didn't, and went and scored. There wasn't many clear-cut opportunities created in the game.
The idea of going to a 4-3-3 is absolutely off the table until Enzo Fernandez dramatically improves how he plays in the Premier League. Like, for me, I don't want this to just be like the Enzo hate train again. Like, I was watching Joey and Josh's conversation this morning, and again, everyone's kind of got to, pussyfoot around this conversation. No, I'm sick and tired of just because Enzo is, a niche player, an expensive player, seemingly a lovely bloke, although he likes to be single nowadays. Who knows what that means? But, he's just not good enough. So there's no way, in my head, going to a 3 midfield is going to work for Chelsea right now. I think we got a serious problem if one of Caicedo or Lavia, touchwood, gets injured or is ill or whatever, can't feature for no reason. I'm just looking at Cole Palmer's heat map here. He literally was everywhere. And I don't want to just overdo this conversation about does he just disappear in the big 6 games, because I genuinely think this is another nonsense narrative. I think it's complete bullshit to suggest that a man who scored 4 goals against Man United last season arguably was one of the best creative outlets on the whole pitch, because Man United didn't do very much. That's a non-story for me. I don't know why people are doing this. It's just to get Palmer in the headlines because he gets sales and gets clicks. It's just complete nonsense. Think of something better to say. But overall, I don't think there is any conversation about trying to fit Enzo Fernandez in the team. But I do think the problem with and again, I think you explained the inversion idea really well in terms of that one defensive inverter and then the more aggressive attacking one. I just think when you've got a player who is naturally right-footed, who is being asked to play on the opposite side, which gives him more opportunities to be on that weaker foot, I just think there isn't enough fluidity there because the confidence from the player isn't there. I think Reece is more than happy to do anything he can in any position he's asked to for Chelsea because he's the captain. He loves the club and he wants to perform and he wants to be fit. And he is fit again. It's great.
Yeah.
And again, I just think at the minute, it's that natural flow of having a right-footed player playing on that left-hand side who's always going to want to cut in on that right foot, which then makes it obvious. Like you say, Man United, Ugarte and Casemiro, both I didn't think were very good. But what they see when a player wants it on their right foot, but he's a left back, is they see an opportunity to step up, to step into the tackle to win the ball. And I think at the moment, the reason why we're not really getting anywhere in terms of that creation is because we are getting sloppy in the middle and then we're making the wrong pass at the wrong time. Or, in Palmer's case, he can break through a couple of players, but then Nicholas Jackson's marked out of the game. So then you're looking at the wingers, and I'm looking at Pedro Neto and Noni Madueke in this game, and I'm absolutely saying that Noni had a bad one.
I agree with you.
Neto I didn't think was awful. I thought he was good.
He was good,
and then obviously Neto goes over to the right, and Mudryk comes in. But the whole time, I'm just I feel as though, shape-wise, we have just gone into ourselves. That was the main takeaway I've got.
Well, let me ask you about that, George. Did you feel that Maresca got it right with the changes in this game? Obviously, Cucurella came on. We think we both feel that he probably should be starting. But what did you think about Mudryk coming on ahead of, let's say, Christopher Nkunku? What were your thoughts on that?
I think there might be an issue with Nkunku. I've been kind of highlighting all season long that it's only a matter of time before a player of that ability who's scoring goals on the midweek games and all of a sudden there's got to be something wrong here. That someone who keeps scoring, apparently, he's still got more goals than anyone else in the squad so far this season. Why isn't he coming on? Joao Felix as well. And I think, if we're being very honest, I don't think Joao Felix was a player that Maresca would have wanted this summer. I think he wanted Osimhen. I think he wanted a proper out-and-out striker. I don't think Felix was ever in his plans, but he's got him, so he's going to deal with him. Yeah. With Nkunku, I think I think what Maresca would have wanted in this game is for Chelsea to isolate those Man United fullbacks, to give them a hard time. I think Mudrik's been in good form recently. I think Neto moving over to that right wing and Mudryk being out there on the left should have given Chelsea more reason to use the width of the pitch to get us forward a bit more. Having Cucurella being able to step up a little bit, naturally left-footed on that left side to support Mudryk a bit more, should have given us more onus to give the ball that side. Neto with James behind him, like it all sounds great, doesn't it? And this is the thing, I'm not being overtly negative about the way that we're playing. It's not a bad result. Moving away from the game, it's not a bad result. To go to Old Trafford and get a draw when you haven't won there in 11 years, it's not bad.
No.
But I just think the changes were correct. And that's the thing I'm a bit worried about, is like, the changes were correct. So is it the instruction and the stylistic nature of how we're being asked to play that's the problem?
But George, I don't know if they were, because there was something you said a couple of pods ago, where you said, why can't we see Nkunku come on as the 10 and see Cole Palmer go to the right wing? And then I added on, and then put a right fullback there and tell them don't invert, overlap instead, just to change it up a bit, to create different options. I would like to have seen that in the game. I would like to have seen Palmer playing as a sort of right half 10, half right winger, and Nkunku as the 10, and then you let Gusto or James bomb on the overlap. And I do not understand why that's not an option in a game like that, where you want to keep Palmer on the pitch. You look to the bench and you go, which player on our bench has the best chance of getting some kind of direct contribution in a form of a goal or an assist? And it's Nkunku all day. We know he's class. All Chelsea fans think Nkunku is class. I do not know why he will not do that. I don't understand it. It would give the game a different look. Lavia and Caicedo are more than competent of managing that defensive responsibility in the middle, filling in for the overlapping fullback. We can still have one of them inverting. I think that the wide areas, there was plenty of room to create overloads there. The middle was where it was very condensed because of those two DMs. So to me, it made sense to try and get more players on the touchline. And I was frustrated, but I have to say, I completely agree with you. I think I've been very realistic about Noni. I think he's played well. He hasn't always got returns, but I think he's carried the ball well. I think he's dribbled well. He's made good decisions.
The next Mo Salah.
I still think he could be. I'm not gonna shy away from that one. I said that, and he's what? Is he 2 years younger than Salah at Roma? I won't start going on that one, but I still think he's hugely talented. But that was the first game where I watched him and I was like, you're really not doing enough. You're getting multiple chances to run at the fullback, and there was one in particular where I think it was maybe Martinez he was running at, and he just got completely dispossessed. Ran into him, basically. It was a little bit a la Sterling, and I didn't love it. But yeah, I think Noni feels at the minute like he's trying to force it a bit too much. And whilst he did make some nice passes, he didn't have a terrible game, George, but in a game where we rely so heavily on our wingers the way our tactics work, they're set up for our wingers to go out and perform. I didn't think Noni did anywhere near enough. And it makes me think, okay, moving forward, the next game, Sancho is available again. Do you bring Sancho back in? Do you look to play Neto on the right and Sancho on the left? Or, I mean, vice versa. What would your thoughts be for the lineup for Arsenal?
I mean, that's a good segue point, but I just want to make one final point on why I think Nkunku didn't come on.
Right.
And I don't like, as much as this I'm coming across really negative here. I know I am. But I don't like what Maresca said afterwards. He said something about, like, in Italy, sometimes if you can't go and win the game, make sure you don't lose it. And for me, that's why Enzo Fernandez came on, because he can kind of still offer a little bit of, like, defensive stability, or is that just a myth? But maybe he does. I don't know. But like
mythological defensive stability.
Yeah. At this point, that's genuinely how I feel about it. But I just honestly think that it was going like for like, because he realised that Man United weren't doing anywhere near enough to scare us enough that we were going to lose the game. So I think it was like, well, Noni's having a bad game. Stick Neto over there because he's not having a bad game. Get Mudryk come on, and if he can do something magic, great. If not, then doesn't matter. But we're not gonna bring Joao Felix and Christopher Nkunku on to try and win the game, because we just don't want to bloody lose it. But moving forward, like, I've been saying it all season. I've been talking about, like, the knocking on the door thing, about players that want to be playing, have got to perform when they're given the opportunities. That narrative has kind of, again, had a bit of a weird, like, bump in the road based on that average, abject, dreadful performance last week at Newcastle. Yeah. But I do think it's at a point now where Arsenal next week, I don't know if I'm starting Noni. I think I'm starting Neto on that right-hand side. I think I'm starting Reece James behind him. And if I'm being honest, Harry, I don't expect any of this to happen, but I really think it should. I think you've hit the nail on the head where a plan B in a game like this, which allows us to actually go for it and actually utilise the quality that we have, is to say Reece James start being that overlapping fullback again. I don't know if it's still about like preservation and
I don't know if he's
sure
ready
that Reece doesn't get injured.
Yeah.
But like if we say that, but that's based on what? Like he's just played another 90 minutes again.
Yeah,
like, what are we basing that off
of? Because I think that role that he's in right now, he doesn't have to do that much work up and down the touchline. He tucks into that 3. He goes up and down a little bit, but not to the extent of what he was doing when he played right wing back, for sure. And Gusto's very, very capable of doing that role. So, honestly, for a game the size of Arsenal, I'm probably going to play Cucurella and Gusto just to try and get that balance a little bit better. I think so. I think that's what I would do. And it's not like James has played badly.
Do not Chelsea captain out for Arsenal at home.
Don't get me wrong. It's not like it's not like James is playing badly. And yes, personality-wise, he brings a lot to the side, and quality-wise, all that stuff. But just in terms of the balance of the roles, I think I would probably rather that Cucurella inverts on the left, gets up the pitch, and Gusto is that guy that's working on the right. Having said that, if you're just going to have one as the more advanced fullback, then you probably start James, but get him at right back and play him as the right-sided centre-back in that back 3 when we're defending. But I don't know. Yeah, it's a difficult one, but there's an argument.
I personally really disagree there. There is an argument. Okay. I agree with you. And I think, again, I've said it in all my previews. I'm like, I think he's going to pick Gusto because he seems to always want to pick Gusto if he's fit. But maybe that changes after the game that we saw at Old Trafford where he's hoiked off at half-time. I just think there's no way that Reece James can come out of this team. Having played the last 2, full 90 minutes, Chelsea captain. We know how good he is. It's just a matter of time before we see those levels again. I just want to get the stats for Reece up here, actually, just to give him some credit, because I didn't realise it was this dominant of a performance, if you can call it that, really. He had 98 touches of the ball in this game, 89% pass accuracy. Looking at the heat map here that you guys can see on the screen for Reece, he was everywhere. And I know, obviously, it looks a bit different because he went from left back and then went to right back, so it looks as though he's literally been mowing the lawn. But I think, again, it's a big positive for him. But I think we should talk a little bit more
But George,
about this game against Arsenal.
But before that, I just wanted to say it's also for me, and the reason I made that comment, it's a difficult decision, it's a dilemma. I'm very, very happy for Reece to start at right back, but my main point here is, Cucurella's got to be the advanced inverting left wing back for me, because especially if Sancho's going to play, the combination play between those two is night and day versus the combination play between Gusto and Madueke. It's not comparable. So yeah, for me, that's the priority in terms of like how we operate in the final third of the pitch. So yes,
I think that's a good point. I think that is a good point, and I want to know what you guys have to say in the comments about Gusto or James. I think most people are going to say James. I think, but anyway, Arsenal is now a very interesting match because I would argue. And I think Gary Neville said this, and at the time, I listened to him saying it after this weekend's games, and he was like, maybe if you're going to go ahead and win a title, you need to have one of these like dead, flat runs of form. I've been watching Arsenal all season long. They've got the same record as us. They've played 10, won 5, drew 3, lost 2. I think Chelsea have been levels above Arsenal at times this season. I think defensively at the start of the season, Arsenal looked great, but now you look at their record, they've only conceded 1 less goal than us. And everyone was saying, well, Arsenal's defence is unbelievable. Chelsea's defence is a shambles. Yeah. Is this actually a good time to play Arsenal? Or is this the kind of game where, if we look at Chelsea going into themselves a little bit recently, are Arsenal going to come and outsmart us and be like, no, this is the game where we actually get our season right back on track. We don't want Chelsea ahead of us. We're coming for you at Stamford Bridge. How do you think this is going to go?
Isn't it hilarious how a couple of injuries to a couple of important players and suddenly Arsenal fans have got the world's smallest violin out? We have been suffering for seasons and seasons as Chelsea fans with injuries, without our best players. I am absolutely sick to death of it already. Hearing, like, as I say, world's smallest violin, these Arsenal fans being like, oh, but we haven't got Odegaard. Shut up. Do you know how long we went without our best players, Kante, James, Chilwell, our Champions League final best performers, and we had absolutely no sympathy whatsoever, none. So, do I have any sympathy for Arsenal right now? Absolutely zero. And to be honest with you, the question is do I feel like this is a good time to play Arsenal? I always want to play Arsenal. We're Chelsea, and we always do well in these big games. Even when we've struggled, we do well in these big games. So I fancy us in this game big time. I want us to go, and I want us to absolutely smash them. And I feel really confident, with or without Odegaard, because I just think we're playing good football at the minute, and I think we're going to be right up for it. And they are conceding Arsenal. So it's going to be a really big battle, but I fully back us in this game. I really do.
I think if it was at the Emirates, I think it would be the shoe would be on the other foot. I think the fact Chelsea are at home here is why this could genuinely be quite perfect, because I think we kind of Stamford Bridge to me seems to be getting like this spark back again. I think we've been missing it for so long, particularly under Poch. It was mosquito. He's gonna die if he comes anywhere near my nostrils again.
Have you got your little racket?
No, it's on charge in the kitchen right now. But I think Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, we're starting to get this. There's a vibe back again. And I don't like the word vibe, but that's actually the best way to describe it. People are turning up at the bridge now, getting excited. Vibes, bro. They're getting excited. There's a team that you can get behind. There is a system that is quite exciting to watch at times, which is why I've had to acknowledge today that we've looked a bit more inside the last couple of games. We've got to snap out of that ASAP. But particularly at the bridge, I think the fact that we can be so blistering on the wings, the fact that we've got the best player in the league, Cole Palmer, the fact that Nicholas Jackson scoring goals at Stamford Bridge for fun, this is, yeah, at first I was like, maybe this isn't the right time to play Arsenal. Maybe this is the time where this is where they bounce back and Chelsea. The way that we have to approach this game is the way that we approached Brighton, the way that we went to Wolves and just absolutely blew teams away. And for me, the decision will be about, like you say, if Cucurella is able to play as that left back, step up into that midfield and link up with Jadon Sancho, the dynamic that we have there and the unpredictability that Chelsea will have by having like a runner and someone that can bomb up like Pedro Neto, will Arsenal know how to set up in this game? Will Arsenal be able to know where Chelsea are going to make the passes to? Will Cole Palmer be able to drop deep again and then look at the positional play of where Pedro Neto is? Could Reece James be the overlapper? Or do we give it to Sancho in those tight spaces? Draw the foul, draw the penalty, whatever. I think Chelsea need to just be really confident here that we have got the firepower to just outgun the Gunners. That's what I think we've got to do. I think Chelsea have got to step up here, use the fact it's at Stamford Bridge, use the fact that Arsenal will win us in 3 in the league and playing very, very average football all season long, and they've got key players out. You've got to smell blood. That's what we didn't do at Old Trafford. It was literally like a shark who's lost his teeth, lost his eyes, and there's just flipping blood everywhere. There's a flipping container ship of dead sheep that's fallen in the ocean, and the shark ain't feasting and wondering why he's still hungry. That's what it was against Man United. It cannot be that again against Arsenal. It just can't. We've got to beat them.
Yeah, no fear. The one thing I would say is that, I'm sorry, this is just a thought I just had now, talking about those fullbacks again. Saka is by far their main threat this season. You know, all the goals and assists are going through him. And I do wonder if James might actually end up playing left back again because of that. Having James 1v1 against Saka rather than Cucurella actually might be preferable. I definitely don't want.
I think that's a smart thought. To be fair.
Yeah, I don't want Saka running 1v1 against Levi Colwill either. So having James in that more reserved left-sided role might actually be the one. And again, you might see Cucurella not playing, which bothers me. It bothers me in an offensive sense. So it's how much do we try and mitigate what they do well, and how much do we try and emphasize our own strengths? If we're going to emphasize our own strengths, then we know that Cucurella-Sancho combination is really, really good. But, I mean, we might see Jadon Sancho on the right in this game. I think he's really good on the right as well. So, and he played there, I think he played there in the Champions League final for Dortmund, didn't he? So he can definitely play on that side. But yeah, mate, it's a game where you go into it and you think, no fear, let's absolutely go for them. And because it's at Stamford Bridge, I think that last game, it's very much a case of we struggle at Old Trafford, we've gone there, we've got a point. You never know what Man United side, on any given day, Man United can sharp and perform at Old Trafford, no matter how bad their performance is, their form is. I was talking to you before about this concept of variable change. I won't go into that because I think it's a bit too complicated. But basically, whenever you play them, I describe it as like your odds reset. It's like when you play the lottery. Every time you go back into the lottery, your odds reset. And it's not quite that straightforward because there's form and there's injuries and whatnot. But to an extent with Man United, I feel like you get that in those big matches because they can set up defensively, they can counter. And because we've got that frailty in Sanchez at the back, it's always going to give a counter-attacking team a chance to score a goal against us. So that is the issue against them. That is also the issue against Arsenal. But I really feel like, yeah, we might concede, but we can get on top of them and outscore them in this fight, in this match, like you say. It's having that confidence in our firepower and in our ability to go out there and score goals.
When you look at the three big games against the so-called Big Six this season, we got beat 2-0 by Man City. Like, whatever. It's Man City. They had more players fit back then. You go to Liverpool, you lose 2-1. We didn't play that badly, but we kind of, again, went into our shell a bit. Man United 1-1, but, they're not even really a Big Six. We drew with Forest 1-1. People were like, oh, you should be winning that game. Look at that. They've done incredibly well. Brighton, incredibly difficult to beat, but that's the game I look at, and I'm like, if I'm Maresca and I'm analysing what our strengths are, I think Maresca's obviously we know that he likes to look at the opposition, prepare game by game. If it was me, I'd be looking at that game against Brighton, and I would look at the fact that Brighton, a bit like Arsenal, they've got a lot of confidence. Brighton were really good at times in that first half at Liverpool at the weekend. Then Liverpool turned it on in the second half. And you know that Arsenal won't come, I don't think, to Stamford Bridge and sit back, because I think they know that that's just asking for trouble. And I think their fans now also will be there, and they'll be like, no. We need to start scoring goals again. We need to start winning football matches. And you can't go to a team that have been so free scoring at times at Stamford Bridge and just sit back. But I do think Chelsea have got to look at that Brighton game and use how expansive we were. I think now that you've got Caicedo in the form that he's in to protect that back line, I think what you said about James being the left back probably will be the case, actually, thinking about Bukayo Saka. I just think this is a big moment for Chelsea. And I know against United, I was like, this could be a season-defining match. But that game, it's okay. We can move on from the 1-1 draw. I'm over it now. You've given me enough positives today, Harry. I appreciate it. But I just think to be ahead of Arsenal with the games that we've got coming up afterwards, at this stage of the season, that's where we need to be. That's where this squad, with the money that we've spent, with the hiring of managers and restarting the project and all that nonsense, we've got to be in that top four. And if you look at the games after Arsenal, you got Leicester away after the international break, early kickoff, going to love that. Then you got Villa at home, who have been much of a muchness recently. That's also after they've played Champions League. So that you'd favour us in that one as well. Then you go to Southampton, who have won one game all season. Then you got Spurs, guaranteed 3 points. Then you got Brentford after that. Like, Chelsea have got very winnable matches coming up. Yeah. So if you get this one out the way, which again, having played so many of the top teams, if you include Forest and Brighton in that, we will have got this Arsenal game over and done with a lot of favourable fixtures to go in this first half of the season. And to be ahead of Arsenal at that stage would be absolutely massive. But at the minute, I feel like my overarching view on it is the ship is semi-steady, but it's a little bit rocky.
Yeah. Well,
and I am a bit worried.
Yeah. Well, we spoke about this period a few pods back, and we said this period is basically the season defining for us because it's a really difficult period. It's pretty much our most difficult period of the whole season. If you look at our Premier League fixtures to the end of the season, we won't go through a period this consistently difficult again with back-to-back tricky fixtures. So no matter what happens, if we finish this period and we're in the top four, that's very exciting. But there is an opportunity to get fans really, really excited if we can turn that Arsenal game into a 6-pointer. If we can go and beat them in this game, then everything is to play for. And I'm including going for the title in that. Because, yes, yes. No, if we beat there's everything to play for, mate. We're right in the mix. We've got a brilliant squad. We might even strengthen with Osimhen or someone like that in January. Liverpool, the only side that are clearly better than us right now with the injuries that City have. It's like they've now basically taken on our injury curse. And I've got an unbelievable injury list. So, yeah, if we can go out there and make this tell and come out of this period and be in third position, fourth position, whatever it is, within touching distance of the top, then you go, wow, we can really go on a run here. This is extremely exciting.
we're not far away, you know. Like,
We're not.
I know I've gone from saying I'm slightly worried. We're 7 points adrift at the minute. Liverpool, I think, are actually pretty good. But again, I worry outside of their starting 11 if they can sustain this. City, I think, are actually in a real pickle. I think the amount of injuries they've got, there's a lot there. Like, I'm not going to give them any sympathy again whatsoever because they flip and win everything and I'm bored of it. And I want them to get relegated. But, like, I do look at this and I'm like, well, why not? But, like, you've got to win these matches. Like, you've got to beat Man United when they're playing that way. And I think right now you've got to beat Arsenal. Well,
one thing I do want to say is that I remember watching a Mourinho interview from back in the day, and I always remember this line he had where he said, I say to the players, I'm never going to tell you have to win, but I say to them, we cannot lose. We cannot lose. And he was talking before these massive matches, and it's very much building that sort of siege mentality. And I don't agree with him when it comes to like a home game against an Arsenal, but that away game at Old Trafford, mate, how many times that could so easily have been an annoying, frustrating 1-0 win to Man United. Despite the form, despite everything. There's so many times. But if we go away and we draw all our games against the top 6 sides in the away matches, and we can win the home games, then we'll probably be okay. So in the context of a season, I don't worry about that result. I'm left feeling like we could have done more. But this Arsenal game, if we don't win that game, I will feel disappointed. There's no two ways about it. I will feel disappointed. I will feel frustrated. The only way I'd probably feel right is if it was like 2-0. We're 2-0 down, we come back and manage to get a draw or something. But yeah, I really, really feel that to make me excited about where we're at right now, for me to feel like we're majorly ahead of schedule, I need to see us go and win that game.
It's like every time there's an international break, I always say it like the score can dictate like a whole mood for 2 weeks, right?
I know.
It depends on the nature of the game. Arsenal might show up and be amazing, which we know they can be. I think everyone's kind of, again, over-dramatising the fall-off or whatever, but like realistically, they've only won 1 FA Cup in 5 years under Arteta anyway, so they're not that great. We've won a Champions League in that time. Like, come on. But like overall, yeah, I'm looking at this table now, and there's no reason why Chelsea can't win the league. We still might get relegated. You never know. It's very much up there.
Why would you say that? Why would you put that? Why would you put that in the mix?
Why not? I was thinking of a Michael Owen line, and nothing came to my head. So if we shoot with the right foot, we'll score a goal with the right foot. It'll be fine. It'll be great. But anyway, I think. What do you have any unrealistic, crazy scenarios for me today to end this podcast episode?
Fantasy scenario. Let's go with seeing as we are playing Arsenal this weekend, and we had that big transfer fiasco where it was, we got Caicedo, they got Declan Rice. I'm wondering what you think it would have been like if it had been the other way around. And we're going into
this is a good one.
We're going into this game this weekend. We've got Maresca, they've got Arteta. How do you think Caicedo fits in the way they play? How do you think Rice fits in the way we play? In a fantasy land, how would they influence this match at the weekend?
Well, a lot of people remember that I famously said that Declan Rice was a better player than Moises Caicedo less than a year ago. I've already eaten a slice of humble pie. In fact, I'd say I ate the whole cake and admitted that I was very, very wrong in the sincerest manner possible. I think Arsenal might have had a Premier League title. And I think Chelsea would be seriously struggling with the legs and quality and ability in midfield. I think Declan Rice is still a really good player. But it's one of the worst shouts that I've made in recent memory.
He's not better at distributing the ball than Caicedo, for me, without question.
No, absolutely not. Caicedo, for me, is the legs and the engine in this Chelsea team right now. He's becoming like an SCN-esque kind of figure, but also some kind of semblance of N'Golo Kante at times too, where you're like, oh, we're in trouble. Nah, we're not. Don't worry about it. Big Moises has got the ball and he's won it back. So, no, I think Chelsea would be in a worse off position, and I think Arsenal might actually have a Premier League to give a decent answer to this situation. I've got one for you, Harry.
Go on.
We've fought an incredibly difficult, but it's 3-3. It's the 92nd minute of the game. Christopher Nkunku has come off the bench. Cole Palmer is obviously out there, but there's just been a horrific tackle that's gone in from Declan Rice, and his boot is ripped in half. He's clearly in some pain and he's limping around, but Chelsea have a penalty. And Palmer is adamant he wants to take it, but his left foot looks like it's about to come off. Who takes the penalty? Palmer or Christopher Nkunku?
Wait, so Palmer's foot is all mangled?
Palmer's foot is in a really bad way, but there's enough left in him to like just be able to step up and take it. But Nkunku's also there, and he's freshly come on, and you know he's good at penalties and whatnot. Like, who takes that penalty?
I'd say Palmer takes it with his right foot, but no, I give it. If his foot's all mangled and his boots ripped in half, I'm gonna probably just tell Nkunku to take it. Actually, no, I'll tell Nkunku take your left boot off and give it to Cole Palmer. That's what I'd do.
I mean, that was probably the deadest question that I could have actually asked you, but I didn't prepare one this week.
It was a bit weird. Neither did I, mate. But some of us
anyway.
are just good at thinking on the spot, you know.
Thank you, Harry. I appreciate that. If you guys want more of this guy, I don't know why you would, but his channel link is in the description down below. Best boxing channel on the internet right now. I can assure you of that. The link is in the description. And yeah, any last words from you, Harrison? Because I'm out.
Any last words? Just subscribe to a guy called Henry if you know what is the right thing to do. I would really appreciate it. And I think you'll enjoy yourself over there, to be honest.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everyone.